Welcome to Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music with your host, multi-award-winning music producer, Eddie Kilroy. And now, here's your host, Eddie Kilroy.
Hi, I'm Kilroy. How are you? I'm glad you joined us for another episode of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and mostly what's going on behind the music. We're going to have a good time today. Jason's here.
I'm back.
Jason, I'm always so happy to have you here because,
thanks for having me.
Man, you know, you've got a perspective on a new kind of music, and we're going to be getting into that as the episodes proceed. You know what I want to talk about today?
What do you got?
One talented, crazy son of a buck that unfortunately left us about 2 years ago, Billy Joe Shaver.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Joe, I've known Billy Joe a long time. He was from Waco, Texas, and we kind of palled around a lot in Nashville, and he did so many incredible things. He, as an artist, all the Billy Joe Shaver fans out there, listen, you loved him. He had a following. I mean, it was like, I don't want to say a cult, that's overused, but just a huge base of fans that loved Billy Joe Shaver. And he'd play one skull orchard after another. Skull orchards meaning, it's a nice way to say it's a beer joint, okay? And he came to Nashville to be a songwriter, but he was so sophisticated and his songs were so unique that it took a few years for him to get embedded. When he really got embedded is he stopped by RCA Studios, Studio B, the one that's a museum, and Waylon was recording. And he said, I want to show you a song. And Waylon said, I don't have time to. Billy Joe said, well, I'll show you how to make time. And he grabbed Waylon by the arm, twisted it behind his back, walked him outside, and I want to show you some songs.
True Texan.
You know what the culmination of those songs were in that meeting?
What was that?
The entire Outlaw album that Waylon did. Billy Joe wrote every song.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he painted pictures with his songs. Some of them were a bit inside for some of the general folks out there, and they were always mostly kind of rowdy songs. But then he turns around and writes a song that I recorded on him when I took him to Caribou Ranch, which is another story up in Colorado. I cut a song on him called Old Chunk of Gold. No, I'm going to be a diamond someday. So why did I get gold and diamonds? Anyhow, I took the album back to CBS, who I was doing the project for, and Rick Blackburn was running it then. He said, Kilroy, I'm disappointed. And I said, at what? He said, we think of you as one of the great song people in Nashville, and there's not a hit on this album you did on Billy Joe Shaver. I said, yeah, there's a big song on there. Listen to Old Chunk of Coal. Oh, no, I just don't like the song. Not going to make it. We'll put the album out. We're not going to work it. Well, 6 months later, John Anderson cut it, and it was a #1 record. Old Chunk of Coal. But Billy Joe did so many things. The Caribou story, okay? Billy Joe was more than a free spirit. He was on a completely different level. And I was taking him to Caribou Ranch, which was quite a feat because only the rock and rollers generally and the big rock bands and single acts like Elton John did everything there, and the Stones recorded there, all the big rock acts. The first country acts that went there, I took them there, Jerry Lee Lewis and Billy Joe Shaver later.
Where was this at? Caribou Ranch?
Where was it? In Netherland, Colorado.
Oh.
Maybe 25, 30 miles from Boulder. But we were getting ready to go up there, everything's set, and Billy Joe calls me one night, and he said, I want to drive. Well, Columbia Pictures, CBS Records had already bought him a plane ticket. I said, okay, what do you need? He said, I need $500 to make the trip. I want to write some on the way. I said, okay. We met up there in Brentwood. I gave him $500. Of course, the company reimbursed me for it. They just cashed his ticket in. But the story goes, I said, now, Billy Joe, you have to be very hard with him. Billy Joe, I need you there at 5 o'clock on this particular day, whatever day it was. And so about 5 o'clock, this is in Netherland, Colorado, population of 150, 200 people, 30, 40 miles from Boulder. Phone rings, and drummer answers and said, Billy Joe says he's downtown. I said, really? He's in a phone booth. So I had a car rented, and I went down to that particular phone booth in Netherlands, probably the only phone booth there. And there's Billy Joe. Not even the start of the story. He's got a hanging bag, and whatever was in that hanging bag was at the bottom of the bag. It was just a big wad of stuff. And I said, Billy Joe, you made it right on time. He said, I told you I'd be here. Had a little trouble on the way. I said, oh, what happened? He said, well, I decided to pick up my cousin in Albuquerque, and he wanted to go to Las Vegas. So we went to Las Vegas, and hell, he spent all his money on those dancing women, buying them champagne at one of those strip places and what have you, and I didn't have any money. Mine was gone. I was in the hotel. I got off the elevator, and there was a slot machine there, and I had 1 quarter. I put that quarter in. I didn't get a dime back. About that time, Kilroy, I'm telling you, this good-looking blonde woman, oh, gosh, dog, she took a big-time liking to Billy Joe. I said, she did? He said, yes, she took me up to her hotel room. We spent the night. Next night, she bought me a bus ticket to Boulder. Okay, he's getting closer now. He's 30 miles from where we're going to record. And he said, I stuck this old thumb out. He had the thumb cut off in a sawmill. He said, I took the old thumb out and hitchhiked out here, and, well, that's how I made it. But he had written one song on the way, and we recorded it on the album.
He had time for that, didn't he?
But I never will forget, I put my last quarter in, and this good-looking blonde decided she really liked Billy Joe. And she just took me in and bought me a bus ticket, and I got here.
That's awesome.
I had more fun with Billy Joe Shaver. One time, I was recording him in Nashville. And did I tell you this before about the restroom? Maybe it was another story. I was doing him, and we were ready to do the song. Everybody had the number charts written out, but no Billy Joe. So I said, where's Billy Joe? They said he's in the restroom. Only one restroom in the studio. And I went up there, and I heard these 2 voices going in there. And it wasn't a big restroom like, hey, everybody, let's go pee. You know, it was like one of those one-man deals. And I said, Billy Joe, what are you doing? Who's in there with you? He said, nobody. I'm just in here having a long talk over with myself. I could tell you Billy Joe Shaver stories because they were funny. Because he was always doing something. He was just a free spirit, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he'd take off and do this, but he was extremely, he wrote poignant songs, you know. I could recall some of the lines and some of the songs he wrote. It was almost like it was on the verge of poetry in a way, the way he kind of structured his songs. If you went to Billy Joe Shaver and listened to the way he was kind of putting it all together, it was still commercial. People still liked it, but you had to really think, wow, that was quite a line. But he would, gosh, I can't remember some. I should remember all of Billy Joe's because they were so unique. But we had a really good time. Then he had a son named Eddie. Unfortunately, Eddie overdosed 10 years ago. But you talk about a smoking guitar player.
Really?
Yeah, for a young guy.
Yeah.
When he was 16, oh, come on. My mind is drawing blanks. The great player with, it wasn't with Leonard Skinner. Oh, Dickie Allman. Yeah. He gave him a red guitar because he liked him so much. And he could smoke. And right before he passed away on that sad overdose, he was a smoking guitar player. Not play like he could work with anybody.
Yeah.
But he just got into some bad drugs, you know. But I got to be real honest with you. And God knows I love Billy Joe Shaver. Lord knows I wouldn't say anything bad about the dead. But the fact is, I think that Billy Joe blamed himself a lot for his son's death because he was not setting a very good example himself.
Yeah.
So that's the way life goes. But his songs live on.
Oh, yeah.
And
great songwriter.
I remember one time he shot a guy. This hadn't been that long ago. We were still on our ranch down in Texas. And he shot a guy, and he had a pistol. They went out back. Some sort of argument. I wasn't there. It was in Austin. But he ended up shooting the guy, and about 2 weeks later, he's out on bond, what have you. And I'm on the bus with Willie somewhere in Texas. and Billy Joe came on, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do, Willie. They want to put me in prison for shooting that guy. And heck, I just shot him in the arm. What's the big deal? You know, like, just shoot him in the arm. It's okay. But Willie said, hey, it's taken care of, Billy Joe. Don't worry about it. And it was taken care of because Willie knew the judge. Willie called the judge. And
that must be nice.
Well, like I've told you so many times, you cannot say no to Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Not because he's this superstar icon who is a national treasure, but because Willie's too nice to say no to. Oh. If Willie says, hey, will you do something? You can't say anything but yes. Okay. Because it's always within reason. He's not saying like, hey, would you go beat somebody up? Would you break an arm? It's just like, would you do something for me? Hey, oh, yeah, I will. What do you want? Just a really nice guy. Another thing, I was thinking of Billy Joe. Why did I not think about this before? He wrote an incredible song, appreciated by everybody in the industry, and it was called Ragged Old Truck. And I can remember a few of the lines.
Is this something you produced?
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about cranking my ragged old truck up, taking it into town. I'm going to raise so much hell that I can't live it down. It's just a good song. Look up Ragged Old Truck, Billy Joe Shaver. It's fun. Billy Joe, of course, passed away a couple of years ago, as I mentioned. And so many of these guys that did so many creative things, they're gone now, but their music is still living on with a lot of people. You know, for instance, this is away from Billy Joe, but I'm not really jumping around, but talking about music lives forever. Elvis Presley, one of the biggest stars in the world, I mean, for a long time. Sold millions of records. He sold, or has sold, more after death than he did when he was alive.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because when Elvis died, he was still a star. I mean, he was still there. Mm-hmm. When, like, another legend, Jerry Lee Lewis, died, he had outlived his legend. There were a couple over at the place the other day, at our place where we are right now, and they saw the picture of Hank Jr. And they said, who is that? And I said, that's Hank Jr. That was before his accident. Mm-hmm. And they were enthralled with the whole music scene, which was fun, and they appreciated it. Really good people. And the Billy Joe Shaver thing was a thing that CBS had asked me to do. And that year, it was a really, really hard year. I did multiple albums on all the wild people. Jerry Lee Lewis, Billy Joe Shaver, Dean Dillon, Gary Stewart, probably a couple of more in there, because they thought that I could keep them straight.
Right.
I couldn't keep them straight. I got records on them done, but it was after the battle. And none of them wanted to do it again, especially Jerry Lee Lewis. But getting back, I don't want to jump around on Billy Joe Shaver. He was one of the great talents that came out of Central Texas. There seemed to be a pocket down there in that Waco area. Yep. With Willie Nelson, Billy Joe Shaver, a very successful country artist years ago. Billy Walker, the tall Texan, a great guy. He came from Waco. It's just like there's pockets in Oklahoma, I'm sure, where like this general region down in there, a lot of people are coming out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Where you go 200 miles down the road and they're not playing very well. Yeah. But they all gravitate to one area. And in country, of course, they all gravitated to Nashville or L.A. So if you lived in Texas, depending what part, you go to Nashville. You're over this way, you go to L.A. So a lot of the people in the music industry went from West Texas out to L.A., Central, East Texas, they went to Nashville. But Billy Joe Shaver stayed in Waco. No, he moved to Nashville. Yeah, he and his wife had I don't know how many times they got married. I said, why are you getting married so many times to the same woman, Billy Joe? He said, I'm just practicing until I get it right.
That's the way to do it.
But we've had such a great time, and I've been so blessed to just even be around people like that, because I was always astounded at the talent that was within. They may not look like it when they walk in, and then they start showing you the stuff, and you say, They're incredible. I really have enjoyed talking about Billy Joe Shaver and some other people, just loving to tell stories about what I experienced in Nashville. So don't miss an episode. I invite you to come in. Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends and Behind the Scenes in Music. God bless each and every one of you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content, email them. Kilroy Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. That's Kilroy, no S, Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Third-party use of any part of this podcast without the expressed consent of Eddie Kilroy is prohibited. The Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music podcast is a production of Eddie Kilroy.